Folding screens have promised us the future of technology for years now, but it's been a slow rollout. That's especially true for PCs and Windows tablet, of which only the original ThinkPad X1 Fold was the only official launch of its kind. But the ASUS Zenbook Fold 17 is the start of a new era for the tech, and it's a form factor that might finally make some more sense. It does a lot of things right that I had always hoped foldable PCs could do, even if the use case for owning such a device feels limited in scope. While the ASUS is the second foldable Windows PC to come across our test bench, the fact that it upsizes basically everything limits direct comparison to the Lenovo X1 Fold. I couldn't help but feel drawn to the device after years of laptops that mostly look and behave the same way. It's an exciting addition to the market, even if its price will prevent mass adoption for the time being. The first time you fold the giant screen in two, it feels as if the future has arrived, though I suspect I'd be less enthusiastic if I'd paid for the Zenbook 17 Fold OLED instead of getting a review loan. Let's examine what it is before showing how its layout can be useful. The Fold is basically a 17.3-inch OLED tablet with a center crease or folding point that creates two smaller 12.5-inch screens. Some of the panel is lost or sacrificed to the crease, but more on how Windows and the ASUS handle that in a moment. The display itself appears to be a fairly soft plastic sheet on top of a normal OLED panel with a sheen to match. It's glossy enough to reflect much more background light with a standard laptop screen, and also takes fingerprints very easily. The device measures 0.46 by 11.3 by 14.9 inches HWD when laid flat, and 1.25 by 11.3 by 7.5 inches when folded. It weighs just 3.31 pounds, making it one of the easiest ways to get a 17-inch screen into your bag or briefcase for travel. The folded footprint is much smaller than a full-sized laptop, though it's not quite the lightest system in its class, as the LG Gram 17 is a featherweight 2.98 pounds. The chassis is made of magnesium alloy, lending the frame a high-quality lift and feel, though the screen borders are plastics. You may have noticed what looks like a cover on the rear that's in fact attached to the chassis. It's a leather cover and kickstand in one, allowing you to make use of different layouts or operating modes when folding the display. More on this a bit later. If being foldable wasn't impressive enough, the panel boosts OLED technology for higher contrast and more brilliant colors than most laptops' IPS. The touchscreen is of course the main attraction of the product, and ASUS hasn't schemed on it. It has a 4:3 aspect ratio with what ASUS calls 2.5K resolution, and is a pleasure to view with sharp details, vibrant colors, and ultra deep blacks. The panel can fold thanks to a hidden hinge in the center, which features some sliding parts that prevent pulling or tearing of the screen itself when you flex or fold it. When the screen is fully flat and light hits it at the right angle, you can see a bit of a crease or dimple where the hinge runs in the center. The hinge isn't too distracting, the indentation is unavoidable and better than the solid separator seen on some folding smartphones, but it is noticeable. ASUS rates it for opening and closing over 30,000 times, though I don't blame you for any concern about the device's lifespan. with a folding screen and more moving parts than a standard clamshell or 360-degree convertible laptop hinge. It's hard not to worry that the display might warp, loosen, or otherwise break somewhere down the line. That said, it's satisfying and easy to use in the present. There's a bit of resistance as you push or pull the screen up or down, but in a way that feels sturdy and smooth rather than rough and tumble. Raising or lowering the display feels steady relative to your pressure. You will, however, want to use both hands and hold the other side firmly as you close or open the panel to counterbalance the resistance. That's how the Zenbook 17 Fold works, but what can transforming displays do for you? Let's see how it handles. The default use case for the Zenbook Fold is probably what we will call laptop mode, with one side lying on a desk or a table and other tilted up at a roughly 90-degree angle facing you. Of course, the big difference is that where you would normally find a keyboard and touchpad, there are second face-up display that gives you a load of screen real estate, and you can still use a virtual keyboard or wireless mouse to control the two screens, a potential boon for productivity on the go. Ultimately, it's still difficult to replicate the usefulness of a real keyboard with a touch screen, but fortunately a Bluetooth wireless keyboard is included. This unlocks the full capability of the Zenbook Fold device as a productive laptop replacement and can be used in a few ways, most obviously putting it on your lap or desk to control the dual 12.5-inch screens. This can be a bit awkward since one of the displays is pointed straight up at the ceiling. You will need to be seated pretty close to see and make sure use of it. The real wow moment comes when you place the keyboard on top of the bottom display. Not only does this turn the setup into a traditional if small laptop setup, but Windows automatically shuts off the lower screen, shifting the taskbar and all your app windows to the upper display. It's a smart and easy solution that works well if you want to functionality of a standard laptop. With this device, this is the way to go. Of course, there are many easier and more affordable ways to get a traditional laptop, but those lack the flexibility of the Zenbook Fold's other modes. This is where the kickstand comes into play. The rear case can be propped open to support one of the most useful layouts, which we will call desktop mode. The full 17.3-inch display in landscape orientation, held up by the kickstand facing you, place the wireless keyboard in the front of you, have a full desktop setup that can be packed and transported with ease. You can also use the Fold like a giant book, half folding the screen and holding it with the spine vertical. It makes for a decent e-reader and works for formatting page layouts, but in my experience proved a bit unwieldy to hold or use for more than a few minutes. Finally, laying the ASUS flat on the table makes it a giant tablet, but your uses for this will vary. You can of course pick it up and hold it while seated for viewing media or browsing the web, but I have a hard time thinking of many work scenarios for it. That's especially true because there is no official stylus support for this device. ASUS is wary of stretching the relatively soft screen, so there's no stylus pen included, and the company doesn't recommend trying a third-party stylus. Not all pens are sure to scratch the display, at least not with brief use, but considering use over time and to avoid a gray area, ASUS officially says you use a stylus at your own risk. Soft-tipped domed rubber styluses may be alright but are difficult for the same use as a pen. Without one, the tablet mode isn't useful for much spec media viewing. When you are ready to take the Fold with you, you can place the keyboard over half of the display. Because of the wedge shape of the clamshell, the keyboard will fill the empty space when you close the device, making a portable stack. What's my takeaway from trying the Zenbook 17 Fold OLED in all of these modes? Its versatility is impressive, though I think users' individual mileage will vary as far how useful each mode is for their personal workflows. Like the ThinkPad X1 Fold, it's extremely cool to mess around with, and the larger screen and keyboard allows some legitimately helpful use cases, but it's hard not to think of its novelty or proof of concept. After looking, the Zenbook Fold has a unique entity. How does it stack up as a regular Windows laptop? ASUS offers only a single $3,500 configuration, so let's run down the details. The Zenbook 17 Fold OLED combines a Core i7-1250U processor with 16 GB of memory and a 1 TB solid-state drive. Intel's Iris Xe integrated graphics fill in for a discrete GPU. Even more than most laptops, the system isn't easy to open or upgrade, though ASUS says it is possible to replace the SSD with effort. While these components are understandable considering the form factor, they are unimpressive for the ASUS price. Settling for one of Intel's 15-watt U-series CPUs in a $3,500 laptop is so unusual as to be shocking, especially since its size and novelty set the Fold apart from ultra portables built for extra long battery life. Clearly, much of the Zenbook Fold's price goes into design and development rather than a workstation-grade CPU or a gaming-class GPU. Besides having the cash, you must desire this device for the possibilities offered by its form factor, not for its raw performance. Physically, connectivity is limited to two USB-C ports on the upper left corner and the right side, both of which support Thunderbolt 4. Don't look for an HDMI monitor connector or USB Type-A port. The Fold also includes Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.2 and a 720p webcam that produces decent video quality. Not among the best we have seen, but better than other 720p cameras. The ASUS Zenbook 17 Fold OLED mostly accomplishes what it sets out to do, resulting in an impressive folding tablet that can function as a real laptop. There are some warnings, however, the price seems frankly exorbitant, especially considering the performance you can get from a mobile workstation or gaming laptop for the same cost. The Fold falls well short of an editor's choice recommendation, though its innovation earns it an extra half-star above the 3-star rating we'd otherwise give it. But viewed as a proof of concept for future, hopefully more affordable and accessible devices, the Zenbook Fold is undeniably cool. We are glad it exists. The ASUS Zenbook Fold 17 is a first-generation product, and in many ways it still feels like one. It doesn't feel refined, nor does every feature make a lot of sense. As a first-gen experiment, it's also undoubtedly way too expensive. That's common for products like this, but for $3,500 you really have to be buying into this thing for a long haul. For that amount of money, after all could buy a high-powered laptop, a portable external monitor, an iPad, and still have plenty of money left over. But it's the first foldable PC that feels worthy of recommendation, albeit for the right person. The 17-inch screen size makes its use in desktop mode a huge benefit, especially for travelers on the go who need a larger screen to work with. The option to swing it around into a smaller clamshell laptop when you are in a more restrained environment is extremely handy. Savvy buyers are right to wait for second or third generation products to see how companies like ASUS work out the kinks. As of now, foldable devices might not be the facto future of laptops, but they are certainly an interesting new form factor that does something no devices have been able to do in the past. If that's not the definition of exciting, innovative tech, I don't know what it is.